that babysitter who was ultimately convicted and sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole for murdering 3-year-old Hannah Weshy, who was in her care. It was a truly tragic and disturbing case, and actually tomorrow marks 1 year from when Partin was sentenced. Let's play a little bit of that sentencing for you right now.
So as to count 6, the unclassified felony murder, the sentence by statute is as follows. I do sentence the defendant, Lindsay Partin, to a lifetime imprisonment with parole eligibility after 15 years. I do not have any discretion in terms of when she might be eligible for parole. I also have limited input as to what happens at parole when those 15 years roll around. Parole authority, they have their hearings, they do solicit input from the sentencing judge and the prosecutor's office, but ultimately they are the ones that make that decision. So the sentence that I am ordering is the only sentence that there's no other means of certainty that I can issue that sentence. It's a life sentence. Ms. Partin will be eligible for parole after 15 years. Doesn't mean that you will get it. Doesn't mean that you won't. I have no way of knowing.
Okay, so Mike, I want to turn to you first. We know that Lindsay Partin is appealing this conviction, and she's appealing it on several grounds: ineffective assistance of counsel, prosecution kind of did a surprise attack with information they weren't prepared for. The likelihood that her conviction gets thrown out and she possibly gets a new trial here?
I think it's very, very slight. Actually, I remember covering this trial when it was live. There was a lot of overwhelming evidence as to here, and I think it really became, in addition to circumstantially, a battle of the experts. And as I recall, their theory of the defense's expert that this child was abused prior to getting dropped off and then just had an episode on the couch and then unfortunately died, I don't think it held up. And I think they're going to, no matter what she argues, I think they're going to rely on the overwhelming evidence and harmless error as to any technical misrulings in this case.
Well, it should be noted that this hearing to determine whether a new trial will go forward, it actually got postponed because of COVID-19. We're seeing a lot of that right now. Terry, you look back on this case, you think about what the defense did. The idea here of putting the blame on Jason Weshy, who was Hannah's father, and saying he was ultimately responsible and that Hannah was only had temporary care of Hannah at certain points. Do you think if Lindsay Partin didn't take the stand, we might have seen a different verdict here?
Well, I think that she almost had to take the stand to defend her actions here. Usually we don't want to put the defendant on the stand, but this is a question of what happened to this child, whose care was she in, and she was in the care of Lindsay. And so I think it behooved her to explain exactly what happened. I think what hurt her, and I think the defense did not do a good job here, is her inconsistent stories. She said one thing about how the baby was harmed, and then she changed it to say, yes, in fact, she did touch or hurt the baby, but didn't cause the death. Then they tried to claim that the father had done something prior to dropping her off. So I think the inconsistent stories really hurt the defense at the end of the day. Not so much her testimony on the stand, but the inconsistency of her arguments.
Well, Mike, one of the other things that she kept saying is she was pressured into giving these what she considered false confessions. You looked at this case. Do you think there's any validity in that, again, as she moves towards an appeal, that the police pressured her into confessing?
I think that you have at least arguments that could be made in good faith as to there. One of the ways they could have avoided putting her on the stand, that I think would have been a more effective way to argue, was to say, I would have argued the rule of evidence about prior inconsistent statements, that the statement given closer in time, the jury has the option of giving that more credibility. And she really didn't incriminate herself until the second confession, which was a day later. And I think the jury could have the defense could have kept her off the stand and made that legal argument, and it might have been more effective.
Well, I'll tell you what I want to do. A little earlier today, I had the opportunity to sit down with Jason Weshy, who is Hannah's father, to reflect on it's been 1 year since Lindsay Partin was sentenced. Watch. So, Jason, we're at the 1 year anniversary of Lindsay Partin's sentencing. today, how are you feeling about everything? And I can't believe it's been 1 year.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a year. It seems like yesterday. Every day is the same. I mean, it's not. Time doesn't make anything easier. It makes it rougher. Obviously, knowing it's the 1 year, but we just try to move on and not move on, but try to go day by day.
Do you think about Partin a lot during this time, this past year?
Every day. It's something that's in my mind every single day. It's never not on my mind. Whether I'm at home or work or grocery store.
We're going back to that moment. What was it like to hear the verdict? Like to hear her being found guilty, to hear the sentence? I mean, I'm sure that's a moment that you revisit. What did you feel at that moment?
I was relieved that part was over and she was convicted. I'm glad she went to prison, obviously. We hope that she does not make parole in 2037. And it was nice to be able to move forward. That whole year was kind of a standstill in our life.
To talk about parole, you mentioned it. I mean, she is eligible. How do you feel about that? The possibility that after 18 years, she could potentially be released. Do you plan? I mean, 18 years is such a long time away, but do you plan to be there when she's up for parole?
Absolutely. It's another thing that I think about every day. I know parole's a long way off, 2037, but time goes fast. So hopefully she is turned down. I will be there. My children will be there. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people in the family that'll be there. We'll have to see what happens when that day comes.
I want to go back to something, Jason. We are actually recapping a lot of this trial, given the 1 year anniversary, and I want to go back to the moment that when Lindsay Partin was on the stand and she admitted to harming Hannah. So let's just go back to that moment. We're going to show you a clip, and then I'd like your thoughts. Take a look.
You indicated that it was your belief you could physically discipline Hannah.
Yes.
Was it your belief, or did you think, Ms. Partin, that you could poke her chest?
I don't know of.
Ms. Partin, did you think that you could slap her across the face?
I have known other moms to do that.
That's not what I'm asking.
I didn't think that it was an issue as a type of discipline.
That wasn't my question. My question was, it was your belief that you could physically discipline Hannah. Was it your belief that you could slap her across the face to discipline her?
Ask me the answer.
There was an answer, Joe.
Thank you.
Yes.
Did you think then, was it your belief that you could squeeze her middle? You could squeeze her middle.
Yes.
Was it your belief that you could hit her on the face with an open hand?
Yes.
And was it your belief that you could hit her on the chin with a closed fist?
Yes.
And was it your belief that you could shake her?
Yes.
Jason, when you look at that, you're hearing this woman talking about abusing your daughter and ultimately being responsible for her death. What's your reaction to that?
I didn't see her testimony in court. I was not allowed in the courtroom at that time. I don't really know what to say there. It shocks me.
Yeah.
It's bewildering. I don't understand how anybody could think that that's okay to do to a child.
I mean, it's not okay. And she was ultimately convicted and sentenced, and it's something that she's going to be thinking about probably for the rest of her life. And Jason, we really do appreciate you taking the time to speak to us. I know this has been an incredibly difficult time for you and your family. We wish you the best of luck, and we hope that you're all staying safe during this crazy time. So again, Jason, thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
No, it's pretty remarkable that he actually didn't hear Lindsay Partin speaking and taking the stand and hearing what she had to say. So it was pretty remarkable to hear his thoughts on the one-year anniversary. But we talked so much about what Lindsay Partin said on the stand. I want to go back to Lindsay Partin on the stand, where she kind of explained what happened to Hannah and how she immediately reached out to Jason. So this was actually the beginning part of her testimony. Take a look.
When Jason called you back, what did you tell him?
I said, Hannah collapsed. I don't know what's going on, but I need you up here right away.
And he arrived?
He did.
Where were you when he arrived?
Inside the house, right in front of the door that leads into the house. I had Hannah on her back on the carpet, and I was kneeling next to her.
Okay. Did you see him enter the garage?
I think I heard him come in the garage, and I can see kind of catty corner through.
But you more so heard him?
Yeah.
And what happened from there?
He walked in the house, and I said, I don't know what's going on. He said, me either, and he picked her up and then put her on the couch in the garage.
You didn't put her in the garage?
I did not.
That's Lindsay Partin, and clearly the jury did not believe her. Again, tomorrow is 1 year from her sentencing, and we will obviously follow more updates about her case. Right now, we want to switch gears and focus on a different case, and this is